especially in software, they're making it more complicated. So adding an extra button or making a more convoluted workflow to get from A to B isn't so hard. Making it simple, putting it into the workflow that makes sense for our industry is really complicated. But that's at the heart of what we do, and we're always looking at and getting requests to do different functionality and things, and we have to always think about, is this going to deter from it being simple or detract from it being simple?
The sound of that tractor means it is time for us to go to work. You're listening to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Hoopah Grading Company. I'm Brandon, and I am your host. We want to welcome you back to the podcast today, where we're going to dig into the stories of the people who shape our communities through construction. Today, we're going to dig deep into the world of heavy construction and engineering software. Joining us today is someone that's truly revolutionized the construction industry and is an admired and respected leader in the field. Matthew Desmond. Matthew currently serves as the Vice President of Heavy Construction at AEC Software Division of Hexagon, where he spearheads strategic initiatives to streamline operations through innovative software solutions. Additionally, he holds the position of President for Hexagon's Geosystems Division in Australia and New Zealand, overseeing sales and support channels for the region. With a wealth of experience spanning various leadership roles across the world, Matthew brings invaluable insights to the intersection of technology and construction. Let's dig in. Matthew, welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast.
No, thanks very much, Brandon. Great to be here.
Is it Matthew or Matt? Which do you prefer?
I prefer Matt, unless I'm in trouble.
Then it's Matthew.
Yeah, then it's Matthew.
Matt, I can't wait to dig into your story. I can't wait to dig into some of the cool technology that you're working on. But first, one of the things that we really like to do on the Give Us a Dirt podcast is we want to hear your story. I want to dig out your personal story. If I go online and I look up Matt Desmond, the President of AGTEK, I can find all I want to about your position and what your accomplishments are. But take us back to, how did you find yourself into the construction industry?
Yeah, it is somewhat of an interesting story. So I grew up in construction. My father's a carpenter. He makes curved wooden stairs, still does. And so I grew up helping him around the country in Australia, making stairs that other people couldn't make. And when I was about 16, I went to him and asked him if I could leave school and help run the business. And he said, well, that's a great idea. I think carpentry is a great profession, but I'm not going to help you. If you want to do that, then you're going to have to find yourself another carpenter who'll take you on and get your apprenticeship under him, and then you can come back and work for me once you know what you're doing, because I'm not prepared to teach you. And that was fantastic, and I didn't take him up on the offer because it was too much work. I think he knew that at the time. So I stuck at school, and I was very bad at English, but very good at math. And I went to a careers teacher and said, well, that would be great if you did surveying. So I came into heavy construction through land surveying. I paid my way through university doing layouts of homes and earthwork layout. And then I did a whole lot of work in land boundary establishment. You have to get a license to practice that in Australia. So I did that. That was a lot of hard work. And then I left for what was meant to be a year. I was going to come back and start my own business. But I went to the UK, lived in London for a while, because Australians have a pretty easy passage over to London, and we live far away from everybody else. So lots of people go over there to spread their wings, like people in the US go to a different town to go to college. We go over and work for a little bit in the UK quite often. So I did that and found myself on the largest construction project in Europe at the time, which was Heathrow Airport redevelopment. And so I was looking after all of the layout and engineering effectively of initially all of the infrastructure that was going under some new pavements and the new building. There's some interesting stories there. But then I got into machine control at the time. So I ended up running all of the concrete paving machine control systems, which was 25 years ago almost now. So it was at the birth of machine control, really. So I wasn't really aware that we were running some pretty cutting edge technology at the time. From there, I didn't want to go straight back to Australia and go from winter to winter, basically. So I was looking for a job to get me through 6 months so I could go from summer to summer, but I had to leave the UK. My visa had run out. And I rang up the company whose the technology I was using, which was Leica Geosystems. And I already had a ticket to Oktoberfest, and their office is quite close to where the Oktoberfest grounds are. And they said, if you can make your way here, you can have an interview.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah, that worked out fine. So I could have trained down from Oktoberfest to the office. The first question was, what brings you to Switzerland? Because it was in Switzerland. I said I was visiting friends. They saw right through that and said, I don't think so.
They knew exactly why you were there.
Exactly. I came clean and told them I was in Oktoberfest. And anyway, I got the job. And I was offered a job in the US or a job in Australia at the time. It was either coming over and selling the paving solutions in the US. I would have been based out of Atlanta, so not too far from Hooper. But my wife made the decision for us my now wife, girlfriend at the time, she was also a surveyor. She said, I'm only going to get one chance to live in Switzerland, so we better take it.
Both of you are surveyors?
Yes, we met at university.
Oh, that's great.
College. So we both ended up in Switzerland. I was there for 6 years doing product management on machine control and grade control products. So I ended up really, I think the highlight of that part of my career was creating a product called Icon Sight, which was really aimed at what we call a generalist. I still call a generalist now, aimed at a non-trained professional or not a specialist to be able to do grade control activities. So really defining things like wizard-driven workflows, big buttons, traffic light advice. So you can get the job done really easily, but not designed for someone that picks up surveying gear every single day. It's like for a temporary user. Still going strong, that product. That was great. Leica Geosystems are owned by Hexagon. And Hexagon is a large multinational who I still work for today. And we have businesses all over the world. So Hexagon brought me back to Australia after about 6 years living in Switzerland. And then I moved to the mining division and started dealing with bigger equipment and bigger dirt. So I was brought in to establish product management and really the customer centricity about the way we develop products. And I was looking after what's called fleet management systems. So systems that optimize how dirt gets from truck to from shovel to truck, and then from truck to either the dumping point or the processing facility. And mining is far more advanced than construction in what they're trying to optimize and how they're trying to make the material flow at all times and keep those really expensive pieces of equipment moving. So I learned a lot there. Also looked after marketing and then looked after the service delivery side. So how the systems were installed and deployed on site. And that was all over the world, but in lots of really funny countries. So we deal in Kazakhstan and Africa and South America a lot. So I got to see lots of different places in doing that job. Then after a while, Hexagon, we've probably have about 200 brands underneath our umbrella.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. So the Hexagon, when did you start with Hexagon?
That was at the start. That was when I came to Leica, because Leica are owned by Hexagon.
Okay.
So I think it's 18 years or 19 years now, 2005.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had no idea the scope and size of the Hexagon family. It was that's a massive organization. Talk to us, share that with our listeners. What about the size and scope of the company?
Yeah, we're about a $6 billion US company. So very, very large. We operate over a number of different market segments, but everything we do has something to do with measuring or modeling the world or simulating the world in any number of dimensions. The goal of the company is to advance autonomy in those areas and help the world. We basically create digital replicas of many things, and then have tools to model what's changed between the digital replica and the real world and the digital world, basically. So we operate in a few different industries. One's in what we call metrology or manufacturing intelligence. And so we have sensors and solutions that are on most production lines in the world that help build things. So I think our sensors touch about 85% of all cars that are manufactured in the world, 90% of all aircraft that are manufactured in the world, about 85% of all mobile phones that are manufactured have our sensors touch them in some capacity. So you're in contact with something that's used one of our technologies before.
I was going to ask you that. Give me some examples. The sensors in some of the automated plants. That's interesting. Some of the other applications where just people like myself that don't really understand the all that you do. Where would we see some of your products that we may be using in our day-to-day lives?
And most of the products are things that, on that side of the business, the manufacturing side, it's coming through and making sure that it's through the QA/QC side, so making sure they're within tolerance. Mm-hmm. They're scanning it. When you actually come in contact with our stuff, if you've ever had a delivery to your home from one of the suppliers, it's probably been navigated there using some of our mapping solutions. So we capture over half the world's photographic imagery. So if that's streamed to your device in one of the platforms or another, then it will have come to you via us. And then that area is in part of what we call the Geosystems division, which is where I am, where AGTEK is based. And that's where we measure things that in the everyday world from a tenth up to a few feet. And those sort of products are all surveying products. So Leica Geosystems is one of the brands. We do a lot in defense with a company called Novotel, our autonomy and positioning division. And then machine control, a lot in building construction. So I have a lot of solutions for architecture, design, all of those sort of things. Then we're in process plant marine. We help deliver over half the world's chemicals and oil and gas with solutions, and then a whole lot in government. So we create first responder solutions. So we deliver most of the world's first responder solutions for fire, police, and ambulance. So if you're ever in trouble and get called out, it's probably been dispatched by one of our solutions. So very, very broad, our portfolio of products, but all got to do with the same stuff: measuring, modeling, positioning, and trying to stimulate what's happening in the world and find better ways to do it.
Matt, that's why you have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning and get started. How in the world do you stay? I was just thinking about everything that you talked about through your journey, from land surveying to machine control to paving solutions to product management, fleet management systems, marketing. You wear a bunch of hats.
Well, I have over time, so I've had a fun journey. So I think we got to about 6 years ago in that, and that's when we acquired AGTEK. So Hexagon acquired AGTEK in about 2018, and at that time, the founder of the company is a guy called John Fletcher. He had a planned retirement. The reason he was selling the business, and I got brought over to integrate AGTEK into Hexagon, and so I lived in the US for 4 years, and I still travel back and forth between the US a lot. Hence why I'm up early in the morning, because most of my business is in the US.
In the US. Yeah.
So the office is in Livermore, California, and we serve the construction industry. So I have been running that business for the last 4 years, and it's a great business. I mean, what we get to do with the great companies that we have all over the US is phenomenal.
AGTEK's been around quite a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, so AGTEK was started 40 years ago. So the first initiation of the company was 1981. We started with some land leveling for agriculture that very quickly turned into more machine control type solutions. So we pioneered machine control both on hardware and software. So we created solutions, particularly 2D at the start, to help machines work more efficiently, but also on the software side to help estimate projects. Half the business was sold off in about 91 to Topcon. So that was the establishment of the Topcon machine control solution. So a lot of them were built on AGTEK technology, but the software business remained. And our tagline for AGTEK is Dirt Simple Solutions. That holds true today. We really work on simplifying technology for generalist users. So that comes back to what I said earlier. We have a really close affinity with simplifying technology for construction, and I think that is at the essence of what we do. Try and really democratize it and get technology into the hands of those that need it, not necessarily those that are specialists in their field. And I think that's where our real differentiation is, that we really try and make our software usable by the construction professional.
I love that piece of your culture and your business. Dirt Simple Solutions, one of our core values here at Hoopa Grading Company is keep it simple. But what we tell people all the time is keeping it simple is very hard to do. It is extremely difficult to keep something simple.
That's right. Making it simple is actually much harder than especially in software, than making it more complicated. So adding an extra button or making a more convoluted workflow to get from A to B isn't so hard. Making it simple, putting it into the workflow that makes sense for our industry is really complicated. But that's at the heart of what we do, and we're always looking at and getting requests to do different. Add different functionality and things, and we have to always think about, is this going to deter from it being simple or detract from it being simple? So that's really a driving force in everything that we do, that we make sure that we keep that simplicity.
Matt, how do you do that? How, is that just the collaboration with the end user and making sure that they have a seat at the table as you're going through the design process?
That's part of it. I think the other part of it is that the people that we employ understand the industry. So we have to be connected to the industry, and it's not that we develop in a vacuum. That's for sure. But we do have we're very lucky and fortunate that the tenure of our staff has been very, very long, and we try and get the best and retain the best. And they have a deep knowledge of the problems that our customers are trying to solve. We're very close to our customers, believe support is very, very important. So listen to what all is going on, and take action based on what we find out.
What a great model. What a great culture that you've created there. And I love the approach, and it shows in your product. The Dirt Simple Solutions motto it's more than just a motto. We actually experience that. And AGTEK is probably, how many people are using AGTEK? What kind of share does AGTEK have in the industry?
That's a good question of number of users. We have probably about 3,000 different construction companies using our software across the country. So most people that move dirt use our software somewhere, or at least a very high percentage of them that are over a certain size. I mean, it's not for everybody, but then there's a whole lot of service providers as well that use our software to run their business, that can be used for consulting for smaller companies until they can get the right people in place and get a system of their own.
Wow.
So I'd say most companies are using our solution. With that comes a lot of users.
I'm sure. Any idea how many users? Have you ever?
Probably 20, 30,000.
That's incredible. That's
incredible. Something like that. So we do have a really deep base of users across the country. And yeah, we're in pretty much every part of the country. So if dirt's being moved, then most likely it's been estimated with our solution for the winning bid, or at least for a competitive bid that maybe we haven't been successful, but maybe also the winner is underbidded based on not having all of the information that they maybe should.
Right. Let me. How often is that product constantly? You know, you're talking about a product that's been around a long time. Is it constantly changing and evolving?
100%. We've always got more things coming. There's always more things that we can do, and the evolution of technology is getting faster and faster and faster. And our job is to keep up with what else is happening in the general technology industry, and bring that to construction in a simplified way. So it started with just DOS computers and a couple of points that you could have, and that was only 30, 40 years ago. And then you had digitizers that revolutionized the industry, and being able to click around and turn paper into digital. And then we did more with CAD and other things to streamline the process. Drones came along not that long ago, and we've got a whole lot of drones in our back of our office that didn't work. It took probably 3 years to figure out a process where you could really use a drone, but we could see it coming. And so that's the type of things that we invest in. AI now, that we're doing a lot of work in AI, and that's that's the cutting edge at the moment of what's going on, and we're leveraging that with some of our drone workflows. And there's more and more that's always going to come, but it's not going to be tailored to our industry. So we won't invent everything, that's for sure. But our job is to take that and package it in a way that can be used by the heavy construction industry. And being part of Hexagon, we invest about 15%, 12 to 15% of our revenue back into R&D. So at a $6 billion company, we've got a ton of money going into R&D, and we can leverage all of that now in AGTEK. So you're seeing, by us being able to leverage technology from other parts of our business, our development cycle has accelerated significantly over the last 4 years, I'd say.
Man, I want to back up. Did you just say $6 billion in R&D?
No, $6 billion is the overall company. We invest about 10 to 15% back into R&D. So it's probably $1 billion. It's getting up towards $1 billion.
It's incredible.
It's a lot of money.
Man, you're like the Tony Stark of the construction industry. How does this technology?
I wish.
You mentioned that the technology is coming faster than we've ever seen it before, and we're hearing these things. We're hearing things about virtual and augmented reality. We're hearing about what AI is doing right now. I can't even. I hear it all the time, and I have no idea how this is about to change the game. But it's going to change the game. Autonomy and some of the equipment and everything else. What can we expect this to look like over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it certainly will change. I mean, my view is that the role of the construction person will change we'll remove some of the tedium of the operation and the jobs that they're doing, and we'll move people into jobs that are more thoughtful, let's say, or have a greater impact on the outcome. But they certainly won't be. There's no way that you're going to remove people from construction. But days of, at least in our software, days of clicking around buttons and trying to input data will be gone. Things you'll get automatic results of scenarios, but the scenarios still have to play out. In the construction industry, the sun comes up sometimes, and other times it's cloudy and raining all day long, and the conditions change wildly. So you can't really predict for that, and people are really good at managing that that level of variability. Machines aren't particularly good at managing that variability, so people are always going to be in the loop.
Right.
But we do some really dumb things that are really repetitive and don't add too much value. Those tasks that don't add value and are just repetitive, we'll start to see them automated and optimized, so they add more value. So the person in the loop adds more value along the way.
They're actually looking at how to build the job instead of putting in the data, spending time doing that. And then I hear our guys talk a lot from our estimators about the time it takes to do the takeoffs and to input the data. Is there a day when AI is doing the takeoffs?
They'll do more. It will do more and more of it. I don't think there's ever a time where it does everything. Then we really at a point where there's no difference between the bid from one company to another. I mean, you all have the same quantities. There's always a different way to do a heavy construction project. I mean, the way that you move the dirt is going to be a little bit different from the guy up the road. The equipment spreads that you have will be a bit different. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. Certainly not in the next 10, 15, 20 years. But it will be much more on the analysis. And it is today. I mean, the time it takes to do a takeoff today is a lot less than it took even 5 years ago or even 2 years ago to get to the same result. But there's a lot more analytical tools in there now that we can present information in a graphical way that gives you an idea of where there's areas to optimize. So that's on us to continue to try and provide more insight in a simplistic way, so you can make better decisions, minimize risk, and that's what construction is all about. I truly don't know how the construction professions survives with the amount of risk that we put in every day, particularly on lump sum bids. That blows my mind. The level of risk the industry is willing to take day in and day out. I mean, contractors put their livelihood, their house, their everything on the line, often on a bid that could go bad.
And no one knows that, Matt. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think about that too, because I get to work alongside of our owner and president, Brian McManus, here at Hoopaw Grading Company. And no one understands that risk and the burden that's carried on some of these owners of construction company and what has to be put into those bids.
Oh, that's right. And I mean, I can only imagine that the day that you wake up and win a big bid, you've got to also sweat a little bit. Did I win it because I missed something?
Right. Should I be excited or scared about this? That's
right. Winning the bid and being the low bidder, it's got to be a scaring proposition, and one that I've never had to be part of. And I think, I have all the respect in the world for our construction owners that put that risk on, and that their livelihood effectively on the line of their families. And
well, I used to work for a guy that told me, he said, Brandon, the easiest thing in the world is to go out and get the job. Just be low. Right, you missed it. That's the easiest part in the world. But to build the project out, and like you said, use the tools that you have, but also have your proven process that differentiates you from the others that are bidding it.
And that's right. And that's what we try and do with our software. We try and give the contractor tools to minimize their risk. Really, at the end of the day, it's all about minimizing risk in the bid up front. So defining all the length area counts, volumes that need to be moved, but then also providing tools throughout the construction project to make sure that can be done profitably. So we try and minimize risk through the construction process as well, by updating that bid, basically setting the scorecard. Because we have if you have a sports analogy, if you don't have a true understanding of the length, area, and count, you don't really know what the scorecard is that you're trying to measure against in terms of whether you're on track or not on track. So the takeoff it gives you a starting point. It gives you a scoreboard to measure against. But then you actually have to measure against it. And I think a lot of contractors fall down in, once the takeoff and the bid is won, they throw that out a little bit and don't measure against the scorecard that they started to see if they're on track or not.
You're right.
They just figure it out at the end if we made money or not, and then move on to the next one. But
so true.
Closing that loop is really, really important.
Matt, you've traveled all over the world. You've met with contractors all over the world. You know our industry inside and out. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced as you introduce some of these technologies into the business? And how have you overcome that?
I think the biggest challenge is trying to adopt a technology for the sake of adopting a technology. You really need to have a problem that you want to solve. I think that's the key. Find a problem and then find a champion that can solve that problem. And the problem might be really big. It might be that you want to do a company-wide technology implementation, but you have to have the buy-in of management and the desire to do that. But that doesn't need to be the case. It could also be that you have a smaller problem. I want to bid more accurately, and so I want to just look at the takeoff part rather than look at the whole digital structure. And within that, you really need to find a champion and a user who's going to be able to be the one day to day implementing that technology. They have to be supported by management, and they have to be trained. So don't think that this technology is going to work or just magically work. Yeah, it's like the sports analogy again. Pros don't get there by not doing training. They still go to the driving range every day. They still train hard. You need to be trained by an organization that can do that. So you have to work with an organization that you have trust in, I think, that has the capability. And often we will work very, very closely with all of our customers. That's a key part. I mean, we won't even sell a system to a contractor unless they buy training. It's just mandatory to get trained. And then you have to work on a real life project. So you can really see the problem that you're dealing with and measure the outcome that you're trying to solve it. So if you haven't got a real life problem that's going to benefit from the technology you're trying to implement, it's sort of a waste of time. So find the problem that you're really trying to focus on and a real world example of that, and then implement against that.
Those are really great.
Continue to monitor. I think they're probably the key aspects.
Those are incredible. Those are great examples. And as you were saying those, I could see that happening all over the place. I'm sure we've even been guilty of that before. And I love the way that you approach that. And what is the problem you're trying to solve? If you're not trying to solve a particular problem, you're just introducing a new piece of technology on top of everything else that you have. That is just, it's gonna tax your employees. They got to learn something else. It's just, how many times do you go into a company and they're running all these different things and it's just become too cumbersome, too confusing, and not simple?
Yeah. Oh, it happens all the time. I think another thing where, excuse me, we often see issues is where the benefit isn't necessarily made clear to the person using the solution. So if the benefit is for somebody else in the organization, but the use has to be for a different person, it's not always made clear why that's really important for the other person in the organization to use the software or whatever it happens to be, the technology in a certain way for the upstream benefits, and it just becomes a burden and another task that they need to do. So I think what we try and do for most of the technology that we have, we try and make the life of the person using it better. If you can't do that, it's hard to get adoption, because if you want me to do something in addition to my job already, but I get no benefit from it, I don't really enjoy doing that. I might do it because it's necessary. It makes it a lot easier if it's explained to me why that's important for everybody else in the organization. But if it has no impact on me, it's not going to go to the top of my list every day unless that's really clearly explained. And that's where the management buy-in comes as well. But if you can give a benefit to the user, a clear benefit of their day, make their day better, the implementation is going to be more successful. I think everyone knows that.
Oh, that's good, Matt.
At least intrinsic.
No, that's so true. So true. And I'm sure it happens a lot. They make a decision. They see this new product. Company spends $100,000 on this new product. They say, this is it. We're rolling this out. Use this beginning Monday. And nobody understands the benefit to them. They don't understand the benefit to the company. It's just one more thing that they've got to deal with.
Yeah. That's a downfall.
And I think you hit the nail on the head on the training too. I mean, to implement something, even if it is going to make someone's life simpler, if it's going to improve the process, if you don't offer the training to give someone the ability to use it in the right way, then you're wasting your money. You're wasting time.
Yeah, that's right. And we're big on training. We've done a lot of overhaul of our training material, I'd say, over the last 3 or 4 years to offer training in a lot of new ways. And that's what technology is helping with that as well. You can train a lot different in a lot of different ways than you could previously. So when the COVID hit, we couldn't go out and visit customers anymore to train them directly. So we had to find different ways to do our training, which was really useful in the end. So we started doing webinars to get across to people. Now we do a webinar every 4 to 6 weeks. But we created all this other content and ended up finding that we had too much stuff. It was all spread out and no one could find it. So we created a community where everything is in one spot and you can search. And it's some of those things like technology, what's coming. It's not just in the product. AI is available to search that database now to pull out the relevant stuff when you need it. But it doesn't all have to be the training doesn't all have to be done from a supplier as well. A company like Hooper, you have great long-time users of AGTEK, and the way that you spread the knowledge internally can also be done from one person to another, but it needs to be done with purpose and not just get someone new in the seat and hope that they pick it up.
That's right. So true, man. I want to switch gears on you a little bit. I want to talk about your role in leadership a little bit. How many people would you say are you responsible for in the roles that you're in right now? How many team members would you say that you're ultimately responsible for?
It's not a huge number. I would say probably 50 to 60.
That's still a lot. It's still a lot.
Yeah. I have some great people around me too. I mean, that's ultimately responsible. I probably have closer to 10 direct reports in that. And then obviously we filter through the different organizations. I run a couple of different businesses.
Yeah. How, with your experience from project management to sales to marketing and all the hats that you've worn, how has that experience shaped your leadership style, especially in driving cross-functional collaboration with large organizations like Hexagon? How has it helped shape your style?
I think that the biggest one of the biggest takeaways I have is that people in leadership positions know what they're doing most of the time, and they generally make good decisions, and you should trust them. So empowering your workforce to make good decisions and be able to do that and be able to fail and not have dramatic consequences for failure is really important. So I think encouraging people to make decisions, correct them where there are issues. There's going to be issues. Sometimes pull them up before issues occur, but then sometimes let them fail and then not have significant consequences for that at times. Obviously, if something's really done that's really bad and unprofessional, that there's an issue. But for the most part, work with people, provide your knowledge and advice openly, be there when people need your help, I think is really, really important. But a lot of it has got to do with letting people run their own show rather than trying to micromanage and be across everything, because ultimately you can't. And trying to replace yourself. I mean, I'm always looking for my team to replace me. It would be fantastic if I didn't have to do anything really, because the team takes care of it.
You'd still be in bed right now.
What's that, sorry?
You'd still be in bed right now.
I'd be in bed right now. But there's always something else. There's always another challenge that you can move on to if everything else is running smoothly. So some of my guiding principles are transparency. Make sure it's clear and people can see what you're doing. That makes it easier for people to understand why there might be some constraints in what you're doing if things are transparent, that at least you're trying hard. Collaboration is really, really important, that you don't have silos and big brick walls between departments, that people should be able to talk to one another. measuring performance is also really important. I think it is important to have a measurement of things so that you can check whether whether you're meeting your goals. And it doesn't mean you're always going to meet them, but at least you're trying to meet them. And simplicity. So that comes back to our tagline, Dirt Simple Solutions. I think simplifying the process of management and of everyday work is really important. You can see a lot of time red tape gets put in the way that can be removed. So there are like some of my 4 guiding principles: transparency, collaboration, measurable performance, and simplicity. Drive a lot of my management philosophy.
Man, are you a sports guy?
I am.
Yeah, I can tell just with your, with that combination of qualities and values, you can see that you're a team guy, by empowering people to do what they are hired to do and what they're gifted to do, by being transparent, by collaborating and measuring performance. Even I could just tell that you operate with a team mentality. And a lot of times you see that from people that have been involved in sports or passionate about sports.
Yeah, as long as there's 2 teams competing, I'm interested in watching.
Let me ask you this:
it doesn't matter what the sport is.
What did you play sports growing up?
I did. I played a sport called Australian rules football a lot, and I'm still pretty passionate about that. And I also did a lot of judo. I still do. I still do participate in some judo and jiu-jitsu.
Oh wow! When do you have time to do that?
Well, interestingly, it's really meditative for me. So there's nothing like somebody trying to strangle you or break your arm that focuses your mind away from everything else and only on the activity that you're currently doing. So I find it actually it's a really necessary part to walk away sometimes from the day to day, and then when I come back, I'm refreshed and ready to go again.
What you're saying is you're not thinking about AGTEK when someone's choking you out.
You can't. It's impossible. It's the only thing that I can do that's impossible for me to switch off completely.
That's incredible. Well,
good
for you for staying with it. That's impressive. Matt, last question. I want to ask you, for those that may be listening, what advice would you offer to an aspiring professional looking to make their mark in the field of construction technology based on your own journey and accomplishments?
Oh, that's a great question. I had a discussion yesterday. I think keep doing what you're doing. Work with the technology. Do a good job. Do what's asked of you. Go over and above. I had a discussion yesterday. Things are seen. I think generally people think that the work that you do is sometimes not seen. But nearly always it's seen. Your manager's seeing what's going on. They're seeing who's doing the work. They're seeing who's not doing the work. And ask questions. Be inquisitive. Ask questions. You should be able to get answers. If things don't make sense, point them out. They don't make sense for a reason. Often there is a reason behind it, which will educate you to do your job better.
That's great advice.
But I think don't think that just because somebody hasn't said thank you to you or someone hasn't noticed something that it isn't being noticed, because nearly everything gets noticed.
That's great point. So often you think, hey, if I don't tell them, they're not going to know what I'm doing. But it's being seen. Your leaders see who's doing the work. They know who's doing the work.
Yeah, that's right. And as leaders, it behooves us to actually acknowledge those doing the work. I think it is a flaw when we don't acknowledge those doing the work, but it does get seen. It's probably I bring it up just because there was a sort of a discussion I had yesterday about that topic that was quite poignant.
Matt, I told you that was the last question. I got one more. What are you excited about? Give me something that's coming up down the pipe that you're excited about and we can get excited about.
Well, part of what brought me on the podcast was we have an event called Hexagon Live every 2 years, which is in Vegas. It's not until next June, I think. But we had a really, really great event last June where we got to visit a whole lot of customers. And we got them in one room, and we got to talk to our customer base. Some of the some really great firms that use our software. We had such a good time. We took that idea on the road, and we came down and we did a tour about a month ago, and we were in Raleigh. That's where I caught up with Spencer from Hoopar. Then we went to Nashville, Tampa, and Atlanta. I'm back on the road the week after next. So we're doing Dallas, Kansas, Philly, and Chicago on the next stint of our national tour. So I'm really excited about getting back on the road and getting we get about 20 contractors in the room at a time, and we get to talk about construction and about moving dirt and getting to really find out where we can help. I think the most enlightening thing of the last, so if I take it just a quick snapshot of what we found out on the last trip when we were in the southeast, really the biggest problem that we can help with, I think, is attracting and retaining talent and preparing people for to be ready to take a role using some of our tools before they get to the workforce. So helping in universities and particularly helping in community colleges in rolling out solutions. So we're working on a new educational program. So I'm really excited about being able to roll that educational program out across the country. I think that tour, one of the big learnings, we were probably aiming too high. We're probably thinking more on the university level, and then we've changed our approach, and we're going to really target community college for a big part of our push there. And I think that was a valuable or invaluable information that we got out of speaking to our customers.
Oh, that's exciting, Matt. That's so cool. Not only are you helping the companies that may not have the ability or the bandwidth to do the training at the level that would be required for someone coming in new, you are exposing these students to the industry, and you're showing them the technology side of it. You're showing them the sexy side of the business. You're giving them something that they can use for the rest of their career.
Well, and that's where we are as an industry really, really bad, unfortunately. We have some of the coolest technology that's in the industry. We started automation before anybody else. I mean, machine control, as I said, I was working on it 25 years ago almost. We were doing self-driving machines. I mean, on that paver, all you controlled was the speed. But we didn't tell anyone about it. We didn't tell anyone we were the first in the world to do this stuff. And it's the same today. You've got great technology that we get to use, but nobody wants to come into heavy construction. People go into building construction because they think that the technology is cooler. It's not. Our technology is fantastic. We're just not very good at telling our story.
Amen. Which is why I'm so glad you got up early to be on the podcast. People need to hear this story. They need to hear your story. And hats off to you for doing the Hexagon Live series. That's a very cool approach to, it encompasses a lot of the things you were talking about that are important to you, which are the transparency and the collaboration and getting with the end user and saying, what do you need? What are the things? And for you to walk out of there with, hey, retaining and attracting talent, that's not necessarily something that you've been thinking about or the team may have been thinking about, but you said, hey, that's a problem that our customers are having. We need to be able to provide a solution.
Yeah, and the best part for me isn't us talking at those events. We take everyone out for dinner as well, and it's sitting around the table listening to the contractors talk to one another, and then that's where we get some of our best ideas is from being able to participate in that discussion and bring people together. It's really, really neat.
You're like a rock band. You're on tour, doing your U.S. tour. You got a tour T-shirt that you're...
No, we need to get one. That's a good idea.
Matt, it has been a pleasure to spend some time with you. I know our team has really enjoyed getting to know you and your team and appreciate all that you're doing to make our industry better and to put a spotlight on what a career would look like in our industry. You're really helping to share that story and change that narrative, and we appreciate the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much. Great to be on the podcast, and great to talk to you. Hopefully it came across. I love the industry. I get a kick out of it, and I love talking about it.
Oh, it did. You can tell that you get excited about it, and who wouldn't? I mean, you get to be involved in some pretty fun projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get my hands dirty too. I'd like to get back out into the field more as well. So I'm jealous.
Well, we can help you with that next time your travels bring you into North Carolina. We'll make sure that we have some boots and hard hat for you.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure I make a stop by.
Matt, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Great. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopa Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and produced by Well Run Media and Marketing. Visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.